Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to recap, because it was a number of days ago, at the end of Thursday's meeting, we obviously witnessed a surprised filibuster from the Liberals to talk out the clock until the meeting ended. And thankfully, we were able to suspend this meeting. And I thank colleagues for that, because I do believe this is an important issue. Now, while the Liberals' intent obviously was to avoid a vote unexpectedly at the end of the last meeting regarding the order of production of documents regarding the complete contribution agreements for the Net Zero Accelerator Fund, which was the topic of major conversation from all parties with the Environment Commissioner before us. Now, this was that same program that Environment Commissioner had discovered that due diligence was not always, if rarely, done before approving any of the government funding. And the Commissioner also found that there was really no clear demonstration of the project's value for money in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The Commissioner had also found that the initiative was not part of any coherent or comprehensive industrial policy on decarbonization whatsoever. And the Commissioner also found that there was a risk of double counting when tracking emissions reductions, which is, of course, of major concern, particularly given the government made the announcement of their national inventory reporting that same day. The Commissioner found the government did not follow some of the principles of calculating emissions, which throws into doubt the numbers that they announced just a couple hours prior to that. And the Commissioner found that in one project, the department did not include all relevant information in the greenhouse gas assessment exercise, breaching the principles of transparency and completeness. Now, I could go on about the Commissioner's compelling testimony that day, but I think my point is understood and recapped effectively for members and Canadians. But the reality is that the Liberal government has badly mishandled their $8 billion program, and given that the Environment Commissioner can't come to a conclusion as to whether or not we received value for money, I have no idea how Canadians could possibly figure out if there's been value for money. And unfortunately, there seems to be a pattern emerging from the Liberals in filibustering. I had the chance to visit my colleagues at the Government Operations Committee a couple of weeks ago, where we were looking at the intended release of the contracts regarding the electrical vehicle battery plants that have been announced with major subsidies to foreign companies by Canadian taxpayers to bring in Chinese parts and components and have them assembled by foreign workers at the company's choosing, and obviously fully, I think, reasonable to, in that case, just as in this case, request that the contracts be provided. Obviously, there can be redactions made, and the committee, I don't, from my side, individually, and I think my colleagues, we don't want to see any sensitive data released if there is legitimate reasons, but I think the willingness needs to be there to release the contract. We were talking about billions and billions of dollars and a government unwilling to release this. And it's a trend of broken promises, unfortunately. I don't have time to go through the entire list of broken promises from this government, but this is a reminder that the next time the government says we're going to spend $8 billion on something, I think it's reasonable to ask, well, where is it going and what results is it achieving? And in fact, you know, this Prime Minister once upon a time said sunshine was the best disinfectant. Once upon a time, this government was going to be open by default. Once upon a time, this was going to be, in fact, the most transparent government in the history of Canada. Now, clearly, these are broken promises on the front we have looked at in terms of the carbon tax emissions modeling, assumptions, and data that we have been denied access to, the same as the electric vehicle contracts at another committee, and the same as it seems to be, and I hope that my Liberal colleagues will perhaps cease the desire to break those promises, move back towards a desire to be open by default, release the contracts, and in fact just vote in favor of this motion and not force opposition parties to come together to seek out this information that I think, in the eyes of Canadians, anybody that watched the testimony of our Environment Commissioner before us, would have the very same questions in which we are asking.